Hello, and welcome to Chasin the Rush. All right, welcome to the first podcast of Chasin the Rush. I'm Colin Metzger, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I'm going to give this a shot and see how it goes. So I thought I'd take this very first podcast to introduce myself and give you guys a little insight to who I am. So this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, which I kind of started like 2 to 3 years ago. But I was at college during the time, and I got busy. And I just didn't have the time to put into the channel that I wanted to. And originally I started out with a channel with the name Adrenaline Bow Hunting. And I kind of get the name Chasin the Rush from that. So my original idea behind that was Adrenaline Bow Hunting. It was about the adrenaline rush that you get whenever you see that deer walk into that shooting lane that you cut, and all that preparation from the summer and the spring and all the scouting, the food plots you planted, all the time you put in, and that adrenaline just gets pumping. And like in that moment, it's just you and that deer, and it's just like no other feeling. And so I thought I'd name my podcast that. And then I wanted to start it back up now after I graduated college. And it's like, well, I want to do more than just bow hunting. I want to share more than just bow hunting. So Adrenaline Bow Hunting, like, it's a cool name, but I want readers to be able to, when they see that channel name, get a better idea of what's going on. So I came up with Chasin the Rush. So I'll take you back to the beginning. I don't want to just start you out right at the in the middle, but so I've always enjoyed the outdoors. Ever since I can remember, I was always in the outdoors. My dad would take me hunting. My grandpa would take me hunting on his land. One of my favorite holidays is Thanksgiving, because when I was little, I had to be like 4 or 5, even younger than that, I think. My grandpa and I would go out on his property on Thanksgiving Day and go deer hunting. I don't think we actually got anything, but we saw a deer. And then we'd come in and watch the Lions game, because my grandpa, he's from Michigan and got to root for his pack or his Lions. And we would do that every year. And that was one of the things I looked forward to the most, was deer hunting with my grandpa, or going rabbit hunting with my dad, pheasant hunting, grouse hunting, deer hunting, just anything in the outdoors. And then as I got older, like I was homeschooled growing up, so I had a lot of time where I could spend in the outdoors. And so I would spend a lot of the time, I'd get my homework and my school done as fast as possible. And then I'd go out into the woods and just follow whatever deer trail I would find. And I got to know the woods really well, and I got to understand what the deer were doing. I guess at that point, though, I didn't fully understand it. I was just like, oh, cool, a deer trail. Let's see where it goes. And I just walk it for miles. And then high school comes around, and at this point, I'm not homeschooled. Well, I'll back up a bit. While I was still homeschooled, I'm going to move this back. While I was still homeschooled, I got into trapping. So my family, we lived on a lake or across the road from a lake, and they had a muskrat problem. And one of the guys that worked with my mom was kind of hired by the lake to trap the muskrats. And he asked my mom if I would want to go out trapping with him, just like if I'd be interested in learning what it was that he did. And so I got into that. Awesome dude, good friend of mine, took me on his trap line, and I got into that. I got hooked, and I did that for like 2 years. Trapped a lot of muskrats, raccoons. I got into, tried trapping some foxes, coyotes, but never could get that down. Just tricky. But every morning I'd wake up at like 6 or 7, and then I'd wake up, go check the trap line with my mentor, and then after we checked his trap line, I'd go check mine and walk through the woods behind my house on those same trails that like the deer used. And it was like one of the best times of my life, just being out in the woods alone, checking my traps and exploring the woods and just being in nature. And high school comes around and fur prices start dropping. So I kind of got out of trapping. It just wasn't worth it, like gas money wise. I got my license and I started doing sports, and so that took away from my trapping time. And my dad kind of stopped hunting as well. I mean, he still hunts, but we just had a life-changing event happen, and he didn't hunt as often. But anytime I could, I was still getting out in the woods. And one of my favorite memories is I would go out in the woods and I'd find the trees to put up some tree stands. And then this is around when I was 14. So I guess I was middle school then, somewhere around there. And I'd set the tree stands up, and at that time, because I was around 14, I still had to hunt in sight of someone, so they had to be hunting, and I had to be hunting, and I had to hunt within sight of them. So I'd try and convince my dad to get out there, and then never really got out there a whole lot. I'd still hunt with my grandpa. Ended up getting my first deer on his property. I think I was age 14. It was a doe. After the year before, me and him were sitting together, and a group of does walked by us, and I was getting ready to shoot, waiting for the big one. And I don't know what happened. I just didn't pull the trigger, and my grandpa ended up getting a doe. And then the following year, I ended up sitting by myself on his property, and he was down the ways a little bit, and I got my first doe. And that was one of my favorite memories. I guess I have a lot of favorite memories when it comes to hunting, but then a couple years later, I can't remember what year it was. I think I was a sophomore. I know it was November 7th. Setting up those tree stands, like I'd said. And at this point, I was old enough where I didn't need my dad to like hunt within eyesight of me. So I went out one afternoon. It was pretty warm, November 7th. And I think it was the first sit in the tree stand that I just set up. It was kind of on a hiking trail. I didn't really know what I was doing, just kind of set it up on a hiking trail, maybe 200 yards off the road and 100 yards away from a house. But there's a major deer trail that ran like right across the hiking trail. And I'm sitting there, and I think I was only in there like 2 hours maybe. Not even that. And all of a sudden I see this brown body moving towards me. And like the way I had positioned the tree stand, I had to like turn to my left and behind me pretty much. And that adrenaline starts pumping. And I'm starting to grab my bow and pull back. And it's this big buck. At least big for me. Like I'd never seen a deer that big. Like all the years of hunting with my dad, I think I maybe saw one deer, one or two. And then my grandpa, I saw quite a few on his farm, but just never really saw anything hunting on state land. I don't know if we really knew what we were doing. We kind of just found a trail and found a comfy spot to set up, and just that was hunting for us. So it's been a learning experience the whole way, but that buck comes walking in on that trail that crosses the hiking path, and he gets like right into the opening on the hiking path, and I release the arrow, and that's my first buck. I'll throw up a picture, but that was like one of the coolest memories because I had set that stand up. I had picked everything. I scouted everything. It was all me. And that was cool. Probably should have gotten that buck mounted. It was a unique buck. Like one side of the antlers was perfect, and then the other side, it was like the base of the antler was like molded to the skull. Like it was not like that perfect circular shape. It was a weird molded shape to the skull. And the deer was it was an old buck. I think it just had a lot of bruises and holes in it. It definitely been fighting. I'm not sure how old it was, but it was an older buck, I think. And ever since then, ever since the first time my dad took me hunting, just hooked on it. And ever since then, just can't keep me out of the woods. So, get a drink. I'm drinking my favorite brewery, Black Rocks. This is a Ray's Mexican-style lager. I love this brewery. They're based in Marquette, Michigan, where I went to school, and I'll get to that in a minute, but love their beer. All right. So I shot that buck. I think I was a sophomore in high school about then. Didn't get a whole lot of time to hunt because of sports. I was playing basketball, football, and ran track in the spring. And I think I even did cross country one year. I don't know. But tried to hunt as much as possible. My family, my mom at this point, my mom and dad split. My mom, at this point, was now remarried, and we had gotten some property up in middle Wisconsin, like an hour north of the Dells. And there weren't big deer there, but that property was a lot of fun. Excuse me. Great place to camp. A few bears around there. A river running through. Well, not, I guess, more of a creek. But we set that property up, put up quite a few tree stands. We started making some food plots. And that was just a lot of fun going through the process of setting up land to shoot deer. Just a lot of fun and really beautiful country. Nothing like where I am now in southern Wisconsin, but really pretty, and just the whole experience of being out there and setting up the land. And then we had to haul a camper up there, and we sleep in the camper at night and have heaters going in the winter, and just really cool experience. Didn't see a whole lot of deer there, so it was kind of like when I was back hunting state land. If you saw a deer, you shot it. It was meat in the freezer. I guess backing up a little bit. So when my mom got remarried, we were living our house was backed up right against a ton of state land. So me and my stepdad at the time would just set up tree stands, like, I don't know, mile and a half back there in the state land, along some hiking or biking trails, horse trails, and we'd walk those trails and then get off the beaten path to where our stands were. And I don't think I saw anything ever in range that I could shoot. I think I saw a few does. We got a ton of big bucks on camera and just never was able to connect. And then we got this property north of the Wisconsin Dells, and I got a few deer off there. One of my favorite memories of that property was me and my brother had drove up there after school. I think it was like a Friday night. And me and my brother go and sit in a ground blind on a food plot that me and my stepdad had planted. And this nice little 8-pointer, I think it was an 8-pointer, walked in. And I think it was like a 35-yard shot. My brother was sitting in a blind with me. And my mom and stepdad were on their way up. I think they'd just gotten out of work and still about an hour away when this deer walked in, and I shot the deer. I think it was a double lung, good shot. Didn't go very far, maybe 50 yards, if that. Not even that. And me and my brother, I'm small at that point. Like, I'm a sophomore in high school, a lot skinnier than I am now. And my brother, he's still in elementary school. Little kid at that time. Now he's bigger than I am, playing college football. But I shoot that deer. Me and him have to drag it almost a mile back to the camper. And normally we'd have an ATV to drag it, but we didn't have one at that time. And so me and my brother, I dragged it almost a mile while my brother went and got the knife to gut it and field dress it. But one of my favorite memories, because I got to share it with my brother, and I think that was like one of the first times my brother got to see something like that. He doesn't hunt as much as I do, and I don't think he ever will. But I think it's something he enjoys, but just never will be to the extent that I enjoy it. Anyway, high school goes on. I think I shot a few more does, one more buck off that property, another nice buck for that property. And we had started putting mineral stations out there and other food sources, and didn't start seeing the deer growth until a few years later. We started hearing that the deer there now are just growing massive racks and more like where they should be, like if I was hunting where I am now. But I graduate high school, and I had always wanted to work in the outdoors. I always wanted to do something with hunting and fishing. And I thought, well, I could be a DNR officer, a conservation officer. So I think I'd gone through a class in high school, done an internship with the wildlife, or the Nature Conservancy, yeah, and really enjoyed all of it. And so I decided to I was looking at two schools after high school. I was looking at UW-Stevens Point and Northern Michigan University, and I was going to go to study wildlife biology. And looking at the two schools, I just really fell in love with NMU, Northern Michigan University. My parents had both gone there, my mom and my dad. They loved it. It's a beautiful location right on Lake Superior. A ton to do, hiking, fishing, hunting. There's a ski/snowboard mountain right there. Just a ton to do. Just really nice area. I mean, if you've ever been to UP, you understand that the UP is just special. And growing up, me and my dad went grouse hunting up in the Huron Mountains with some family members. And again, some of the greatest memories I'll ever have with my dad, just out there at our hunting cabin and with family, enjoying that time in the UP. But so I ended up going to Northern Michigan University. I studied wildlife, fish and fisheries biology my freshman year, and fall semester, my first semester, I started to feel like this isn't what I want to do, or I'm not sure what I want to do. Like, I don't know if I could do this after I graduate. I had a biology professor who just turned me off to the idea of wildlife conservation and biology. I didn't like the science part of it. And I had always been a smart kid in high school. I got good grades. I was like a 4.0 student. It just wasn't my thing. So then I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I started looking at the Army. There's a Army Reserve recruiter on campus who had reached out to me. And then I was also I lived across the hall from someone who was in the Army Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC. So I started to look into that more, and I was like, well, I do need a way to pay for college. Like, it's getting a little bit too much to pay for. So we'll try that out. And at this point, I was still sticking with my biology degree. And I decided, after weighing things out, to join ROTC. So my winter semester of my freshman year, I joined ROTC. And I think I stuck out my biology degree for that semester, but I was taking just gen eds to get those out of the way. Kind of still trying to figure out things. And I really fell in love with the ROTC program there at Northern Michigan. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but still had time to choose. So then sophomore year rolls around. I changed my degree to criminal justice, I think, that fall. So then I was taking criminal justice classes, and I was like, well, I'll be a juvenile parole officer. That might be cool, working with kids, helping kids who may have had a less fortunate life than I have had. And all during this time, like, I haven't had much time to hunt at all. Just being at school, my family living in southern Wisconsin, it was just hard to get home to hunt or get to our hunting property. At this point, we had changed our hunting properties. We moved to Crawford County, Wisconsin, instead of north of the Dells. So now we're in big buck country. It's all rolling ridges and just farm country, just big deer in Crawford County. So I got home when I could, usually around my birthday, November 2nd. I'd always try and make it home to make it home to hunt that weekend or whatever my birthday was, because my birthday usually fell around the weekend. So tried to make it home to celebrate my birthday and hunt, because I wouldn't want to do anything else besides hunt on my birthday. Like, hands down, my favorite thing to do on my birthday. Anyway, so I'm studying criminal justice. I'm in the ROTC program. That's going really good. And I guess backing up to 2019, I think it was 2019, I'm pretty sure. Let me just confirm that. So looking at my photos, Still really enjoying school. It was a different scene. I liked being on my own. I've always kind of been on my own, doing my own thing, really responsible. But yeah, so 2019, my freshman year, we have this new hunting property. We have trail cameras out, and we're getting some huge bucks on picture, like stuff we haven't ever seen. Like we saw it maybe on the state land, but nothing really like what we're seeing consistently on camera. And so, let me see. I can't even remember the year. That's just sad. Yeah, so November of 2019, I go home. First year at college, I go home to hunt. And go home for my birthday. And I shot the biggest buck of my life, biggest deer of my life, on my birthday. November 2nd, 2019. I'll put a picture of that as well. One of the greatest accomplishments of my life is shooting that buck. Really different looking property from what we were hunting before. And we had our camper up there. I walk out the door. My parents forgot to tell me happy birthday. Just totally blanked their mind that was my birthday. But I walk out to the tree stand. And at this point, I was trying to film my hunts, trying to start that YouTube channel. So I brought my camera out to the tree stand. I'm starting to set it up, and it's getting light. I'm still struggling to get this camera up, and all of a sudden, this huge buck walks out. And he's walking, he's getting closer, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to get this camera up and shoot him at the same time. I'm like, I'm not passing him up. I'm not to that point. I'd rather shoot a buck than get it on camera. And I still stand to that today. Of course, I'd like to get it on camera, starting this YouTube channel and podcast. I'm going to try to. But when it comes down to it, I'm shooting that buck. Just because my time hunting is limited. Maybe this year, maybe I might rethink that this year now that I'm out of college. But when I was in college, in high school, it was all about just getting deer on the ground. So the buck's walking in, and I didn't realize how big he was until I saw him later. But looking at him, I'm like, okay, this is a shooter buck. And I hadn't ranged anything yet because I was still setting up the camera. And it was shooting hours. It was still pretty light. I think I had sat there for a while. And I was like, okay, it's getting light out now. Now I'll set up the camera. And that was a mistake. I think I waited just because it'd be easier setting it up in the dark. And that's when that buck walked in. Walks into about 35 yards. I kind of just guesstimated it, moved my little dial on my bow, and bam, double lung shot. He ran maybe 20 yards and dropped right across our property line. And I texted my family immediately. And they were as I was texting them, I think their texts were coming through like, oh my goodness, forgot to wish you happy birthday. And I was like, thanks, big buck down. And then my stepdad leaves his blind because I think he was hunting with my mom that morning. Leaves his stand, or leaves the blind, comes down to where I'm sitting, and I'm still up in the tree stand packing up my camera gear, even though I hadn't finished setting it up. Sees my blinking loom knock on the ground, walks over, and this huge buck, I think it scored at like 164.5 inches, just one of the coolest deer, the biggest buck of my life to date. Who knows if I'll shoot anything like that again. Definitely have the potential. There's some big deer on state land around where I live, and I don't have any cameras running right now, but there's potential out there. So that was my freshman year of college. Moved on, junior year, or I think it's spring semester of my sophomore year. I decided to change my major again to multimedia production. And at this point, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go with this military route. And I can't see myself doing this criminal justice thing after I get out of the military. And at this point, I was thinking active duty, Army. And I just decided to, okay, if I'm going to do this, like, change my major again, and I've already wasted like 2 years almost at this point on a degree, and I got to figure things out. So I'm like, well, I've always loved hunting. That's like always something I've wanted to do, something in the outdoors. So I changed my degree to multimedia production, thinking that, okay, cool, this will be cool. Like, I'll learn how to create a YouTube channel and how to run a camera and run audio equipment and edit and produce stuff. And so I start embarking on that journey. Junior year rolls around, still in ROTC, still in multimedia production, still going home to hunt, like my birthday, Thanksgiving, and then like maybe right before Christmas do a gun hunt or something. I don't know, bow hunt, but not hunting a whole lot. And I tried to hunt around where I was going to school. I think I'd gone to, like, my dad had his roommate from college when he went to NMU. He still lives in the UP, and he has a cabin somewhere in the UP. And so I think I went and visited with my dad while he was at his buddy's house. And I didn't really hunt. I just sat with my dad. Still a really cool experience. I love that deer camp, that cabin. Went there all the time as a kid. And I got to be there when my dad shot one of the biggest bucks of his life. I think it is the biggest buck of his life on that property. And so just sharing in all those memories. Love that place, but really didn't get to hunt a whole lot while I was in college. And so junior year passes, and in ROTC, so in between your junior year and your senior year, so during the summer, you go to this thing called advanced camp. It's at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And it's kind of like the culmination of ROTC. It's where they test you on your leadership abilities and what you know, and then you get ranked against everyone else in the country to determine your branch of the Army and what you'll go into after you graduate. And so in between my junior year and senior year, I go to Fort Knox, and I'm there for, I think it's a little over a month, not too long, but it felt like forever. It was hot, and I start to realize that, like, active duty, I think it's really cool, but I don't think it's what I want to do. I was just kind of tired of the runaround, just a lot of hurry up and wait. If you know the military, there's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's just a lot of dumb stuff. Like, there's a purpose behind all that dumb stuff. But I started to realize, okay, I don't know if I can do this every single day. Like, I love this and I hate it. And so I don't know if I can do this every day. And, like, I've always wanted a family sooner or later, and I love deer hunting. I love the outdoors. So how am I going to make that work with the military? And so after advanced camp, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go National Guard or Reserves. And I forgot to mention the summer in between my sophomore and junior year, I had enlisted into the National Guard to help pay for college. So I was a cadet with the National Guard in a company in the UP. And so I'd kind of gotten the experience of the National Guard. And I mean, it wasn't great. Didn't do a whole lot as a cadet, but it was helping pay for college. And then I go to advanced camp, and because of my time in the National Guard as a cadet, like I kind of knew a little bit more than some people. I guess a lot of people, but that doesn't always matter. There's some amazing cadets out there, high speed, know their stuff. And then after advanced camp, I go to Air Assault. I had a slot at Air Assault at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, right on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. And I loved that. Really cool experience. Got smoked past day 0, past the sling load phase, which that takes out a lot of people. And the whole experience, like just really physical. I was at advanced camp, which didn't get you in the best of shape because you're not doing a whole lot physically. You're in the woods sweating and carrying heavy stuff, but it's not enough to get you physically in shape for air assault. But I really enjoyed that experience. But there's 10 days of air assault. It was day 7, 11 days if you count day 0, but day 7. We had a 4-mile run, and it's kind of like that 4-mile run. Once you pass that, that's the start of phase 3. So I made it through phase 1, which is like helicopters and learning everything about almost every helicopter in the military, their capabilities. You had to memorize things like how many windows were in each helicopter aircraft, how many fire extinguishers it had, how much could each tow hook hold, all kinds of stuff. And then phase 2 is the sling load phase, learning how to identify deficiencies in the way the equipment is hooked up and kind of how like sling loads should be hooked up, and then landing zones, figuring out the math needed to figure out a landing zone. And I made it through that, and that was a big relief. So make it through that, and then I do that 4-mile run. And it was a decent pace. I mean, it was probably around an 8-minute pace for 4 miles. It was raining that day, and Kentucky is hot in the summer. It is hot. And I had been at Fort Knox for a little over a month, so I was kind of used to the heat. But I don't know what it was. I was super hydrated that morning. I had ate a little something just so I'd have something in my stomach. It was raining. It was hot and humid. And I was struggling on that run. I get to like mile 2, and like I'm just not feeling okay. Like I'm falling out of formation. The only thing keeping me in formation is the guys around me encouraging me, and then the air assault sergeant behind me yelling at me like, if I catch up to you, you're out. And I just did not want to disappoint everyone because I had people counting on me, family, people back home at ROTC, at the university. And so I make it, and like the last 100 yards of the run, it's everything I can do to cross that finish line. So I'm running across that finish line, and there's like a little puddle right across the finish line because it was raining pretty hard that day. And I just like dive for that puddle to cool off. Like I don't know what was going on with me. And the air assault sergeants see me dive for that puddle, and all of a sudden like they're calling over medical, and like I can't get up. Like my muscles just would not let me get up. And so they start taking my core temperature. And if you know how the military takes your core temperature, it's not fun. They're stripping me down in front of everybody. But I'd crossed the finish line. And so I was like, well, what's going on? Like, I don't know if I don't think I blacked out, but I wasn't all there. So they're taking my core temperature, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, am I going to be able to stay? Because they're telling me that I'm going to have to go to the hospital because my core temperature is like 105.8 or something. Just something crazy, like just not good. And so they take me to the hospital, and that's the end of air assault. I wasn't able to return after going to the hospital. But yeah, so that was that summer. Came back. I think I went hunting once that fall. Just didn't get a lot of whole time. Didn't get a whole lot of time to hunt. I did end up gun hunting. Shot 2 does this last year. Yeah, because that was this last year. And after I shot those does, I brought my bow to the stand the next day, thinking, okay, I got my 2 does, got some meat in the freezer for everyone. Now I'm going to just bow hunt. Saw a decent buck. If he was a little closer, probably could have shot him. Snuck up behind me. And then I graduate in May with multimedia production. Really cool major. Really great professors. They care a lot about what they're teaching, but I don't think that was the correct degree. I don't know if the school had all the capabilities to teach what needed to be taught in that major in particular. And I went to school during COVID, which did not help. So I didn't get as much hands-on time with things that I would have liked. I ended up having an internship with Public Eye News, which is the student-run news station on campus, and that was really cool. I was a news anchor most of the time. I would have liked to run cameras and done audio a little bit more, but no one wanted to be a news anchor, so I ended up doing that. But really awesome, amazing professors. One of them was a retired officer from the Air Force. They really cared about the subjects they were teaching and their students, but I just didn't get as much out of it as I would have liked. Like right now, like I kind of got the basics of like setting up a podcast, what I need, and the basics of editing video, but it kind of got me on the track of where I wanted to go to start this YouTube channel, start this podcast. And so where I was going with my story about advanced camp and air assault, I kind of decided after that I didn't want to do active duty. And sometimes I do regret that, but I ended up going National Guard in the Army, and I started getting more roles within my unit, within my company as a cadet. That kind of like pushed me towards that. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And like, I'm a part of an engineer company in the UP. And the whole UP is all engineer companies. And I love what we do. So that really pushed me towards National Guard. And then I ended up branching engineer because I loved my company. I loved the engineer branch and what we do, and just the diversity of the engineer branch. Like there's sappers, there's horizontal platoons, there's vertical platoons. There's just a lot to do with engineers. So I ended up going National Guard thinking, okay, I can still pursue hunting and a family life that I've always wanted. And the Army won't take as much time away from me. And like I can still serve my country at the same time. So that's what I ended up doing. May of this year, May 2023, I ended up graduating, commissioning as a second lieutenant in the Army. And after graduating, I was like, okay, I have this degree. Don't know if I'll ever use it just because my experience at NMU didn't get me the experience that I wanted. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast at least and a YouTube channel. Like I've always wanted to do this outdoor thing, this outdoor industry thing. And so I gotta do something. So here I am. I had intentions to start this a little earlier in the year, and opening day of bow season is tomorrow. Don't know if I'll hunt. I'm going to go watch my brother play college football. He's at UW Platteville. It's his first home game tomorrow. He's a freshman, and they're playing Michigan Tech. My alma mater's I'm blanking on the word, but their rival. So I gotta go watch that. Don't know if I'll be back in time to get in the woods tomorrow night. Probably do some hunting Sunday night. Probably go to church on Sunday morning, but gotta get in the woods. It's still pretty hot out. It's like 75 during the day, so we'll see what we can get going. And I know the podcast and the videos might be a little rough for the first few months while I'm still trying to figure this all out. I'm learning as I'm going. I kind of have a base foundation from what I learned at school, but I'm learning as I'm going. And I just want to share my love of the outdoors with you guys. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. Like, I want to share what gets my blood rushing. And I'm chasing that rush. And I'm hoping you guys are chasing that rush too. I know that sounds a little corny, but it's true. Like, you got to chase what you love. And for me, that's deer hunting. Fishing. I love fishing. Not as much as deer hunting. Trapping. I love trapping, but still hunting. Favorite thing of all time. I got a lot of interesting things on my mind that I'd like to talk about. Might bring on my stepdad. He has a lot of knowledge of hunting and fishing. And maybe I'll bring on some other guests. So we'll see where this goes. But I guess that's all for now, and see you next time.